Welcome back. The Indian markets coming online. The Nifty 50 down just about 0.2%. Not too much, about 60 points from yesterday's close. The rupee also weakening against the US dollar. One would have thought that the US trade announcement with India would continue to have a positive effect, but perhaps we'll have to wait and see towards the end of the day if that is the case. We're watching this space very closely. We're watching different stocks. Also, quick check on some of them, the Indian IT majors particularly, because they had a sell-off yesterday, and the weakness that we are still seeing here in broader Asian tech space as well. Take a look. Well, Infosys down, Wipro down. Well, Infosys up now, and Wipro also up. It was down yesterday, quite a bit actually. The entire Nifty IT was down. Persistent is down. Tech Mahindra down about 0.1%. Coforge 0.5% down, leading those negative numbers. All right. Let's now take a look at the shares of Tata Power. After the chief executive said Tata Power is exploring future nuclear power projects and is assessing possible sites in 3 Indian states. However, final decisions will depend on clearer government regulations. The company is considering smaller nuclear reactors or SMRs, including small modular reactors. Tata Power is currently in talks with government agencies and both domestic and foreign technology partners. The company also said it expects to comfortably meet its imported coal needs this year. The stock right now down about 1.5%. India has also been ramping up its push into renewables as the country looks to secure energy sources to fuel growth. In its latest budget, it increased its outlay for solar sector spending by about 30% to over 3 billion. It's part of the country's goal to hit 500 gigawatts of non-fuel capacity by the end of this decade. India is also leading efforts through the International Solar Alliance, which the US recently withdrew from, to help countries achieve climate goals. And to talk about that and more is Ashish Khanna. He's the Director General at the International Solar Alliance. So, Ashish, thanks so much for coming in to our studios. Welcome to Singapore. I don't know what brings you to Singapore. Why don't you start with that?
So we are here in Singapore for 3 things. The first, even though India has done remarkably well for 150 gigawatts, roughly $150 billion in the last 10 years, the international sovereign wealth funds and pension funds have invested less than 1%. So we believe with India's lower macro risk, long tenure transmission assets and stable returns, it's a great market. So we were here to talk to all the investors. What will it take for a large pool of $5-6 billion of investments? That was one roundtable. The second, Prime Minister Modi's vision of one sun, one world, one grid could connect right up to Australia, Singapore, India, Middle East, Europe. And we are trying to see what will it take for undersea cable connections to happen. We had a closed-door discussions with Singapore authorities, possibility of India-Singapore, Singapore-Australia, India-Middle East. That sounds ambitious, but it's really practical. And the third and final thing is we help startups, because startups will disrupt, bring down the cost further. There are 20 startups from Asia-Pacific region which were making pitches to investors yesterday. We facilitated that, so that's the way forward.
What's the takeaway? What's going to happen next?
Well, the takeaway is, first of all, let's look at India. It's already achieved 50% of renewable energy. It needs a lot more investments, $50 billion annually. So a lot more international institutional investors need to invest a lot more.
But India is well capitalized compared to other countries when it comes to this side, right?
That is true. But it's still doing 1/3 of its targets that it needs to meet. So definitely a lot more international capital. As I said, all countries that are doing a lot more solar need to have a good storage policy in the evening. But if you get connected through large sea undersea cables, the need for batteries can come down. Singapore has very high tariffs. India is discovering tariffs less than 4 cents along with storage. So there's a win-win arbitrage potential by getting connection, in addition to lowering the battery costs.
I know your mandate is quite interesting because it's not just about solar, it's about positioning India diplomatically. And I want to bring the point up about how you've been at the World Bank for 20 years, leading energy programs in 9 countries in West and Central Africa. So you're quite interestingly placed in this role in that context. But the question has been from analysts. We were at Energy Week in Goa. I don't know if you were there. Were you there? Yeah, we missed each other. But the question has been that, is the ISA able to make India's presence felt internationally? When the US pulls out, I'm sure the US is pulling out of all multilateral organizations, but are you being able to do that? Or it's not visible, or that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so definitely a lot more needs to be done. There's no doubt about it. But I will start off by a very simple statistic, that it took 25 years to do 1,000 gigawatt of solar in the world. Next 1,000 happened in the last 2 years. And we, IEA, IRENA, all believe that it will double to 4,000 gigawatt in the next 4 or 5 years. Why is it happening? It's happening for sheer economics. Whether you are a rich country which wants to do energy transition, whether you are an emerging country that doesn't want to compromise on growth for energy, or you're in Africa which wants access, all of them have solar at the heart of it. 90% of all countries have solar as its cheapest source. So what ISA needs to do is, for example, take India's experience to the world, because this low cost and scale at this is happening in India and 1 or 2 countries. India will now, by next year, become the second largest solar after China. So which means Asia will be the fulcrum of solar. We are based in Asia, so it's a very unique moment. And then how do we take small island countries, African countries that are seeing less than 3% of international investments? Our job is to create platforms. We were busy in getting membership. We now 125 countries. Our next phase is to go from pilots to platforms to become much more relevant.
Okay. You've talked about low cost. One of the questions that emerged is that should India increase its target from the 500 gigawatts renewable by 2030, given today's lower cost, compared to when this target was made?
I will say that that's, of course, India's sovereign understanding. The thing I understand, which is much more important, is to actually do storage. For me, India's problem is not only going to be 500 gigawatts, but what's going to be your storage policy, which has 2 or 3 dimensions. First, India needs to do a lot more on different kinds of storage solutions. Pump storage, hydro, lithium-ion batteries, and then a range of new options for which innovation is important. Second, storage should not only be on generation, it needs to be at the distribution end as well. If you ask me, the biggest change on distributed solar and digitization and storage is actually going to be on the distribution sector. So India's focus should be a lot more on distribution sector, because if that side is taken well care, the private sector will invest much more.
Talk to me about whether the budget actually addresses this, because it increased solar allocation by 32% year on year to 300 billion rupees plus. Is it enough in the face of this, the global uncertainty, the US pressure, don't buy any Russian oil, India trying to, balance energy transition with energy security, and the paradigm shift in global energy security that, is signaling, well, you got to do it yourself effectively.
So on this question, that you have to do it yourself, every country, not only India, is looking at affordability, reliability, and energy security. Affordable means, is it cheap? Reliable means, am I getting it 24/7? Energy security is, am I producing some of it? And I think India is actually a very good example of creating an ecosystem of some manufacturing, local currency. I'll tell you one interesting part, which is underreported in terms of what big thing is going to happen in India, and that's on solarization of agriculture. I was in Davos, where the Maharashtra CM shared the story that 16 gigawatts of agriculture demand is going to be shifted to solar, which is bringing the cost from 8 rupees of landed cost to just 3 rupees, saving $1 billion. And that $1 billion is being translated to industrial tariff reduction to spur industrialization. That's win-win.
Is he talking about Maharashtra or all of it?
It's Maharashtra.
He's talking Maharashtra. Fair enough. Okay.
Rajasthan is doing it. Government of India has a PM Kusum scheme that's 35 gigawatt of solar, expected to be doubled to 70.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned Maharashtra. For our viewers, Maharashtra is the state which has India's financial capital, Mumbai, in it. It's in the west, southern west. Cities like Mumbai and GIFT City, also mentioned in the budget, are attracting a quarter of Indian startups. How can such hubs support India's energy transition when it's been not on pause? They're trying to run both this parallel to the energy security angle, but it's taken a step back.
I'm not sure it's taken a step back.
That's the perspective we got at Energy Week. That
that's true.
It was all about energy transition. Now it's slowed down a little bit.
No, so well, the slowdown is one part of it. I'll say it's calibration. Calibration on quality of energy transition rather than quantity. And in terms of the quality, how startups play a big role on managing flexibility. I go back to distribution. I was part of a chair of a startup which is actually promoting a lot of startups on how distribution, renewable energy is going to be managed more effectively. And more importantly, I'll go back to storage. What are the new storage solutions?
Okay, Ashish, thanks so much for coming on and speaking to us. Great perspective.
I'm
sure we'll keep following what you do. That was Ashish Khanna from International Solar Alliance. And that's all the time we have today on Inside India. Of course, keep watching CNBC.